People, Deluded, I'm back again. Good morning, and I hope you're all doing well and safe. I hope you're in good spirits. Most importantly, I hope you and your loved ones, friends and family alike are all in good health. And if they're not, hope they get better. If they are, hope for continued, obviously, health. Moving away from that, there's not really anything to speak about in relation to Arsenal. But you know me, I never stay off the internet. I never turn off from football. And I have some things to speak about, people. So let's get straight into it and not waste any time, people. First and foremost, I'd like to say, condolences to Rocastle. It's that time of year. He's simply a legend. It's the anniversary of such. Moving away from that, congratulations to Mesut Ozil and his wife as well, because I believe they've welcomed a baby girl into this world. And we've seen a lot of Arsenal players, Mustafi, Granit Xhaka, Ozil. I could be missing out someone, but quite a few of our players are becoming fathers or growing their families and stuff. And Ozil, this puts life into perspective because he's very fairly criticised. He polarised his opinion. He's praised and criticised. He's got some people that follow him religiously, some people that hate him religiously. He's had a top career. People can say what they want. He's a World Cup winner. And my point of that is, when you have a child, it probably puts things into perspective. Of course, football is important, but he's now living for another one, basically, people. And I haven't got a child, so I can't put into words what it feels like, but it must be a pretty weird feeling knowing that there's a human a good feeling, but there's a human that's 50% of you, and that's more or less you. So yeah, congratulations to Ozil on his next step in life, really. Moving away from that, you lot know me, I'm very excited to see Saliba, and I believe a former coach of his who coached him at under 12 and 13 level has had something to say, people. And we need to be very careful and just let him develop and all of these things and whatnot, because I keep telling you, look, so far this season, if we was to just judge him on this season being ended or temporary stopping, I'd give him a 7, 8 out of 10, maybe even as high as 9, people. I'd probably say 8. You know what, 8? Because I do think collectively St Etienne haven't been the best. The only poor games he's had is against Metz. He was poor against Bordeaux for the goal. He switched off, and he obviously gave a penalty away in the Coupe de la France. But he's 18, well, freshly turned 19 in his second full season. You're going to expect this. My point of raising that is not to criticise Saliba. Fans were going to need patience. We all know the buzzword in today's football is potential, potential. Everybody has potential. And it goes for a lot of players, mainly more the young attacking players. But the same energy used to proclaim him as the next this, that and the other, or any other player, they quickly flip-flop. I think he's going to be a great player. I think he should be first choice / rotating, fighting for his space from the get-go. But we need to let him settle. He's still learning the tricks and trades of defending and the defensive arts. Off the ball, he is good, but he can improve. And it's not me saying I want him to get ripped and have bad games, but you forget the lethal strikers, forget the Sergio Agueros and the Harry Kanes. He's going to learn tough lessons playing against the Danny Ings, playing against a Benteke, playing against a Glenn Murray. These are all street smart, experienced strikers. Some strikers, like you saw against Metz, he struggled with the pace and the strength of Diallo, someone who's 24 years of age, got double figures in Liga, potentially someone that gets a move if you're looking at strikers. Do you see what I'm saying? So he's going to need to go through them harsh periods, but he's got potential. He's not going to be that player overnight. We need to keep, praise and critique him fairly and just really stand by him, because he is going to have a tough season. And for me, mentally, he's going to need to adjust, because everything he does at Arsenal is going to be magnified. Every great game, again, going to be proclaimed as the next this, that and the other, folks. Any poor game, overrated, and all of these other comments there, people. But of course, I'm very happy to see what Saliba could be. He's quick, he's 6'4". He's described as someone very obsessive about improving as a football nerd. So, he wants to push himself. Obviously, we want him to be a good defender. There are comparisons, for me anyways, with Varane. But, he's not going to be that player overnight. One thing about Arteta, at least there's some stability in the team, or an improvement in how we look at defending. Because could you, not to criticise Emery, but could you imagine Saliba coming into that system? People expect him to put out fires. It won't happen, people. Moving forward, though, I've been waffling. His coach, Fabio Frasconi, who coached him at under 12-13 level in his hometown club at Brøndby, said via St Etienne's website, William will go far. He reminds me of Varane as a kid. He was already above the lot, technically clean, comfortable with the ball, I had to position him at the centre forward position. Evolving then in centre defence would not have allowed him. Apologies, people. Delivery. I had positioned him at the centre forward position. Evolving in central defence would not have allowed him, in my opinion, to progress. I feel enormous pride when I see him playing at this level with this composure, this maturity, this accuracy, this sense of anticipation and application. And it is good, people. For me, with Saliba, it's just about, obviously, you can't get experience without playing games. So it's about playing games. It's about learning the dark arts. It's about going through them. I'm not that wanting to, but going through them tough moments. You know, if you turn your back on Glenn Murray Glenn Murray's a sort of striker with his age now. 89 minutes, you might not see him. You turn your back on him 90 if he scored the winner. You might go against a Benteke. You might not score, but he's a physical powerhouse. Or Diego Costa. You might go against, I don't know, let's just say Mbappe or something, even though he's not in the Prem, someone who's going to run in behind, or, you know, he's not going to play against Aubameyang, but Aubameyang, who's going to run in behind, he's going to have to go through these moments. His anticipation skills is good, but it's just about simply more experience and cleaning things up, people. But his coach has summed it up well, and there's not really much more I can add, people. That's great. Moving forward, he has said, and this might be because of his upbringing, this might be because of his makeup, this might be because he wants to escape the hood or the inner city jungle, which is where he grew up, more or less. He said, I've never seen a kid have such a desire to succeed. He wanted it from an early age to be a professional footballer. Already hated defeat, transcended himself. When the opponent was superior, he knew how to give himself, showing the example for the good of the team. How many times he changed the course of a match. Between us, moreover, it goes far beyond the simple educator-player relationship. A real relationship of trust has been established. I made him understand that education was important, that it had to be structured, to be attentive to his diet if he tended to go the course. So yeah, we know he's got the desire, but he's clearly got good people around him, who've grown up with good people around him. And that's what you simply want to hear, people. You really want to hear that. Moving away from that, though, in fact, slightly keeping up the theme of centre-halves, Fabrizio Romano, who, you know, seems in the know with the transfers, let's not take it for gospel, don't shoot the messenger, but he said we're working on a centre-half signing for next season. Now, that could be anyone. That could be, you know, it could be similar to how we signed Pablo Mari, and that I don't think we was linked with him too tough before, you know, the story actually had legs and it was progressing. We could have some unknown, either experience or emerging star somewhere that scouts have done their job, or all the relevant parties have liaised with each other to bring them. Obviously, you've seen the names in the paper. You've seen us linked with John Stones. You've seen Oppo Meccano. You've seen Canute. You've seen in recent weeks, again, Ivor and Ndika. You've seen a bunch of players. So again, you know, it's positive. And again, until we see someone holding the shirt, whenever that can be, we can't believe much, but I think we need a centre-half. Centre-half and midfield needs to be addressed. Centre-half, there's mad decisions to be made, people, because there is a case to say we've got quantity but not necessarily quality. And it is a difficult one. I feel David Luiz, he seems Arteta, not just because of form and, you know, big up his form. That's the underlying reason he might sign a new deal and whatnot. But he seems a very big player in the dressing room. He seems one of Arteta's lieutenants, so he's going to stay. Socrates has been in decent form, but I personally think he's going to fall victim to this and probably be moved on. Mustafi, are we going to give him a new deal regardless of form? That's for the club to discuss, but I know many fans like myself would look at it and say, you know what, one love to Mustafi for playing well when we stand by him, but there's potentially never been a better time since he signed for the club to move him on. You've got Rob Holding, who I would keep and stay, but I find myself fighting with the good and bad on either shoulder, because on one hand, you know, I think Holding can be a big player for us at some capacity. He's shown that before his injury, but he's still a bit naive for me. Regardless of injuries, you know, obviously injuries are a big part, but he's still, for me, he's not developed as fast as I think he could. Tactically, people, I still think he's naive. I still think he plays with blinkers. I don't think his marking is the best. And I think considering he's been here since 19 or so, it should be better, people. Obviously, because of the age he came here, he's really been a sporadic squad player of sorts, with the occasional run in the side, but he needs to start making progress. I think there's a player in there. You know, there could be a case, I want him to stay, but could he go out on loan and play consistent football, because this injury's taken a lot out of him? I think he needs to play a lot. But on the other hand, considering, and I do think regardless there's potential in him, considering he was signed for 2 million, he's English, can you make profit on him and keep it moving? Because we do have a lot of projects, and, you know, as an Arsenal fan, we are holding a lot of players' hands. You're holding Maitland-Niles' hand, you're holding Holding's hand, you're holding a lot of these players, and if, you know, we to one. I want to keep both of them, but they're two that come to mind. We've got to just hit the ground running, sort of thing, people. You know, you've got Callum Chambers, for me, would probably be utilised hell of a lot under Arteta. I don't know that to be fact, but I think his form would have warranted that before he suffered his injury. Will he come back to the playing standard? I think Chambers definitely deserves a spot. I think Mustafi and Socrates need to keep it moving. I think Mavropanos will probably head out on loan again because he needs to just keep playing, and he's... You know, I'd keep him as a project player. Let's see if he's actually good enough, if he develops and he's good enough to do something here. If not, let's move him on. It's not the same, but you look at how Kristensen was developed by Chelsea. Obviously, Mavropanos didn't come through our academy, but Kristensen was brought to them, stayed in the academy a number of years, spent a period at Gladbach, and then came back. And if he wasn't of levels, they could have made a decent change for him. In fact, Kristensen, if the transfer window does get back on, Chelsea could look to move him on. But there's a lot of decisions. Obviously, we've just spoken about Saliba to come into the side. So for me, I'd be looking at next season, I'd be looking at Saliba. In no order and no who's going to play all these games, but I'll be looking at Saliba, I'll be looking at Pablo Mari, I'll be looking at David Luiz, I'll be looking at Rob Holding, I'll be looking at a new centre-half, and then there's potentially Callum Chambers, but then you're looking at 6 players, people. Again, you know, it could be a thing where Holding goes on loan for a year, or we ride with, probably overstocked with 6 centre-halves. I know people can play elsewhere, but the next season, 2022, you'd imagine David Luiz would be moved on here, and Saliba's still young, so let's not put too much on his shoulders, sort of thing, people. So it is what it is in that regards, people. Hopefully there's a centre-half of stature, but it's hopefully, yeah, man, like Fabrizio said, we're working on the centre-half. Hopefully it comes into something. Carrying on with centre-halves, people, or the theme of centre-halves finally, and I've just mentioned Mustafi. This rumour has been there for a while and it's come back. Apparently AC Milan are weighing up a move for Arsenal defender Mustafi during the summer window, according to Italian news outlet Calcio Mercato. Now, obviously, Mustafi's previously played in Italy. In fact, you could say that's where he kind of set up his roots before Valencia. You know, it's a great country. It's a good way of life. It's a good somewhere for him, in terms of life experiences, for him and his children to spend a period of their lives. You know, it's out of the spotlight. Moving to AC Milan, if he did move, you'd imagine that's going to be his last significant move, and he'll set up his roots for a number of years. He'll play first team football if they do legitimately want him. And for Arsenal, if we can get 15-20 million for him, it'll be decent. Obviously, they're always linked with our players. If it's not him, it's Mkhitaryan, it's El Nene, it's Ozil, it's Xhaka, it's a bunch of players. Obviously, with Glazides being there. So I don't know how much to read into that, but I do know Mustafi's future is one of debate, people. Moving away from centre-halves finally, though, and I saw something online in relation to Carlos Vela, people, and why it didn't work out more or less for him at Arsenal. He spent a period of 3 years here. Obviously, he came here 2005. He made 62 appearances, I believe, for Arsenal, and, you know, predominantly loan spells in Spain, but he did have one at West Brom. And since obviously leaving Arsenal permanently, he's gone to Sociedad, he's gone to America, and he's even been linked with Barca. He's had definitely more of a better career in Europe than at Arsenal, sort of thing. I mean, he used to have some decent games with Griezmann. And yeah, man, he's actually at his latest club, he's found the net 57 times in 71 games and whatnot. But apparently he told GQ that going to San Sebastian was an important part of his life. He said, the most important part of my life came in San Sebastian, my new family, obviously going to Sociedad. I came from 3 years of being in London, which I couldn't adapt to. I don't know how to explain it specifically. It was a place I don't have good memories of. I wanted to get out of there. There I started to enjoy my football again. After 3 bad years of living in England, I didn't know anything about the Basque country. I wanted to leave so much that when I heard a good offer to play and leave England, it was a case of me saying, yes, I love it, let's go. So he was frustrated. Maybe he didn't get enough first team football. Personally, I think he was very underrated. Overrated, sorry. He had a good chip on him. You remember the occasional cup games? I don't think he was physically strong enough. I don't think he had enough about him. I just don't think he was good enough for this club. But we have a weird love for Vela at Arsenal, and I do too. And yeah, man, and I don't think he had the best environment because he never really settled. He was in the squad at times, but he had a number of loan spells. The West Bromwich Albion one, it didn't happen. I don't think he was physically ready for the Premier League. But either way, he's gone and asserted himself as a professional footballer of higher stature, people. So credit to him. Another striker has been speaking, and more of a fan favourite, Podolski, or Lukas Podolski. He's spoken, and he said, and I've mashed up the relevant parts. He said, I was on the phone with the manager, Arsene Wenger. He made an offer. We spoke half in English and half in German. That's how the transfer came about. And you know Wenger on the charm offensive, you know, telling people how important they are, speaking their language, probably a nice glass of wine. Wenger knows how to seduce people, really, in a footballing term, people. If it doesn't matter who you are, Wenger gets you in the room, he can convince you to, you know, he'd probably sell ice to an Eskimo. But when he can actually get in the room versus we tried to sign players. But moving forward, he said, he started the conversation in German. I was kind of thinking of staying at Cologne with friends and family, but they told me to leave and play for a great manager at a great club, so I decided to move. And I helped my club in doing so because they got 15 million for me. A lot of money back then, especially as they'd just been relegated. I didn't get enough game time in relation to Arsenal. I felt that I performed well and didn't get the minutes I deserved. On the other hand, if you look at my stats, I played in about 80 games and was directly involved in a lot of goals by scoring or assisting. And there was definitely, was it against Montpellier? I could be wrong, but he scored a couple of rockets, people. And I don't know, man. I don't know why it didn't work out for Podolski, man. I don't know if Wenger felt his work rate was the best, and it's completely different. But I think there's similarities in how it kind of ended for Podolski and with Arshavin, in that, you know, apparently the work rate wasn't quite good enough, but it is what it is, man. Like Podolski, I mean, you know, you gave us good memories against Spurs. You was a fan favourite. You scored some decent goals. Got nothing but love for Podolski, really and truly, man. He acted with integrity. How can I dislike someone that does that, people? Moving away, though, he said he didn't feel he got enough game time. He said, my relationship with the fans and players was positive. We won the FA Cup in 2014, which was the club's first trophy for quite a few years. And I liked living in London, in Hampstead. My family enjoyed it too. Of course, Hampstead's a nice area, very nice area. And, you know, he lived in London. He was a fan favourite. He won a trophy. He's got nothing but decent memories here, people. And despite not having the most game time at Arsenal and having to go to Inter, and obviously, I don't know if he's now in Germany, but I know he's gone Turkey in Germany. He's probably in Turkey now. He has said, he was a great manager and I really liked him as a person too. He was like a grandpa, a very intelligent man who was nice to speak to. He could speak lots of languages and never yelled. He was Arsenal. He created everything. Arsenal created a style of play. He was the main man who oversaw the club's move to the Emirates Stadium from Highbury and won so many trophies during his 22 years there. I'd be fascinated to see how he would have done in charge of another club. So that's a difficult one. And yeah, Podolski, that's decent to hear from you. Moving away from that though, people, and you know, William's always been linked with Arsenal, and I just felt I'd mash up his comments here. He said, my desire is to stay in the Premier League, but I don't rule out playing in other leagues. No, I'm not going to play until the end of the season and see what happens. I'm very used to England. So he wants to stay in England, he wants to stay in the Prem, so maybe that alerts a lot of clubs. I mean, you know, Barca allegedly bidded for him, and I think he'd do that, but I think for William, what's more important is the length of contract and obviously that final payday, folks, people. So we'll see in William's case how it develops. Moving away from that though, people, and you know, the International Centre for Sports Studies Football Observatory, in other words, CIES. I can't pronounce it, CS or whatever. Apparently, the value of Arsenal's squad could plummet by more than 154 million should the season not resume by the end of June, which could obviously have knock-on effects for us and obviously other clubs. According to data published by such, according to figures released this morning, which was yesterday, taken in Europe's 5 big leagues, Man City would lose the most, with Mikel Arteta's squad facing the 7th biggest fall in the Premier League and 17th across Europe. Our squad is valued at 555.5 million on the 11th of March this was, and apparently their algorithm predicts a 27.7 fall, which would then pull it at around 401 million people up to June the 30th. If no matches are completed, the numbers take into account a host of metrics including expiring contracts, the age of players and recent performances, with the exaggerated transfer value based on 20 players with the highest value at each club. So obviously it depends how they're marking it and things, but all clubs probably are assessing apologies, what the knock-on effects probably to not playing is going to have for how they bring in players, how they sell on players, the physical condition on players, obviously away from players, gate receipts, income and things like that. And we're only going to see that in due course. But for now, I've got nothing more to add, so I'm going to get out of it. People, as usual, it's always a pleasure. Deluded, I'm out. Please comment, like and subscribe.